Okay. All right, let's roll right into our top 12 driver press conferences here at Watkins Glen International. And certainly good to be up here, and certainly going to enjoy the weather this weekend. We got 3 excellent events, I think, on tap. And leading off, as he does so oftentimes for us in our driver interviews, is Jeff Burton. He drives the number 31 Caterpillar Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing and comes into this weekend 5th in points. And on a little bit of some momentum swing, had a couple good finishes here of late, and I know he'd like to grab a couple wins here before the chase starts. So, Jeff, talk about, we're halfway through to what we call the race to the chase. 5 races remaining before we start the chase, and your thoughts about what you've got to do to put yourself in there and be ready to roll.
Well, I mean, obviously we need to avoid bad events and let the math do the work, and we got to put ourselves in position so the math can work out. But we also need to continue to improve. We've been real solid all year. The last 3 races we haven't run quite as well as we had run before. We've run well, but we haven't run quite as well. The good thing about those races, we got what we deserved in every race. We which has been kind of our weak point for our year. So even though we didn't perform the last 3 races the way that we had been accustomed to, we still ran in the top 8 pretty much the whole race. Anywhere from 3rd to 8th we've run, and but we would need to run a little better than that for sure. But we were able to capitalize on those and get the finishes we deserved, and that's good for us because that's where we haven't been as good as we needed to be. We can couple that and get our speed back, then I feel really good about our chances of transferring.
Okay, we'll take questions now. If you have one, raise your hand high, and we'll start right here with Mike, and then we'll go to Dave, and then over here to Postman. Go ahead.
Mike Mulhern, MikeMulhern.net. We all remember Sonoma and how wild and crazy even Jeff Gordon got out there. And we were just talking to Boris Said this morning, and I'm sure you remember Boris Said at Sonoma a couple of years ago when you were trying to make the championship race. What do you expect out of these guys race on Sunday in terms of the championship? Do you expect some courtesy out there, or is this going to be another Sonoma, and, hey, I don't care who wins or who loses or what?
In respect to the guys that aren't racing for points, or just everybody in general, I expect this race to be like every other race. I think that we've seen a lot of action happen on restarts. I think that we'll see that again at this race. I think people have been courteous at times and not courteous at other times. I just expect every position to be fought and every position to be fought hard. It's clear on road courses that restarts are very important. If you can get by somebody on a restart, it's hard for them to get back by you. So, I expect restarts to be real aggressive, and I don't think this race, even though we're at a road course, I don't think this race will be any different than any race we've had this year. So, I expect restarts to be real aggressive and much of the same, to be quite honest.
Let's go down here with Dave. If we could get him a microphone, please.
Yeah, Dave Rodman with NASCAR.com. Jeff, part of this is speculative, and I apologize for that, but with Atlanta announcing that they will drop one of their 2 races for 11, if Kentucky's out, your reaction to Atlanta going to 1 race, if it's Kentucky that replaces it, the possibility of going to Kentucky, and an overview of what appears to be a year for big changes in the schedule?
Well, it appears to me that there are going to be some big changes, not only in venues but in race dates. It looks like a lot of stuff's going to get shuffled up, and I think that's as long as shuffled correctly, I think it's a good thing. I'm not a big believer that change is always good. I'm a believer that good change is good, and we've seen in Atlanta some good racing, but we haven't really seen the crowds there. It hasn't been, you always think of Atlanta being a real strong traditional southern racetrack with a lot of race fans there, but the fact is we haven't seen that. I think the Memorial Day race the Labor Day race was really well attended last year, but we just haven't seen the crowds that we're used to seeing there. So that's my perspective of it, and I think it's a sign of the times. I think if racetracks aren't supported by the fans, then you're going to see those races move somewhere else where the fans are going to support it. So I always hate to see a racetrack lose a date because I know there's a lot of fans that do make both of those races and love that racetrack and love the area where the racetrack is. At the same time, it's capitalism. If there's another venue that more people can come in and more people can enjoy, then that's where you can expect the show to be going.
Next question, who has it? Anybody? Right over here, Claire, and then we'll go to this gentleman here.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius NASCAR Radio. Can you talk about racing here? And a lot of the drivers talk about throwing the race car around. In fact, I think Casey Kane said that it goes against every grain in him to learn how to do that and still keep the finesse that you have to keep, on the other tracks. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, for me, I've found that I still have to be who I am. I have to drive the car the way I need to drive it to be consistent with who I am. If I try to do something different, that doesn't work for me. The hard part is understanding the limits. That's the hardest thing for any driver coming into a strange situation, is to be able to find the limits. And when you're racing for a championship and you're racing for points, it's difficult to find limits, because typically when you found the limit, you typically find them because you crossed it. And that's what's hard about road course racing for people that weren't raised in it or hasn't been their background. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is I know the concept. I know the best way to get into one. I feel like I know the best way to roll the middle and get off of one. Question is, where's the limit? And it's to me, that's always the parameters: understanding the limit of your car, understanding the limit of the racetrack, and understanding your limits. And once you do that, I think it's no different here than it is at Bristol. Although it's a different racetrack, it's the same kind of car. You're the same driver. I just think it's trying to understand the limits, and the guys that can understand the limits quickest, they're the ones that typically do the best.